Why don't you just give us an opening, Doug? You spoke today, you answered questions. And before I start with the next round of questions, anything you want to share about your experience today? Any thoughts? How you feeling about Sprouts? Any opening comments you want to start us with before I go into my questions?
Look, I think the idea of what's happening, in the world today is there's never been a greater need for sprouts from growing your own food is paramount to success in life and health. And that, with going on with the tariffs right now and the taxes and the distribution and the environment, it's really important that people have a plan B. And, my plan B is my plan A, and that's Sprouts. And the insight that I had, and look, Steve, you and I go back 24 years, right? So we met in 2001, right? At a different hot spring
Right.
location. So we go back a long time. And for me, I've known about Sprouts. I've loved Sprouts for, 30 years. And I never took them seriously. I was believing the hype that they were nutritious and that they were a garnish or a side dish superfood, like just something to have in small quantities on occasion, like maybe in a miso soup, or on a sandwich. And it was only my collective experience of being, plant-based, being raw, living in the desert, having Organic Avenue, having Juicero that led me to the desert. And when I was living in the desert, I had an existential food crisis. I was wondering where I was going to get my food, where I was going to get my nutrition. And when the idea of Sprouts like came into my consciousness, it was so powerful that it literally took over my life. Like literally all energy focused from everything else that I was doing was to spreading this message of sprouting to the world. And if I were to simplify it for the precursor to this panel, sprouts are seeds that are germinated. And when they are germinated and they become sprouts, they are vegetables and they are living vegetables. And vegetables are healthy for you. They contain soluble and insoluble fiber. They contain micronutrients, phytonutrients, polyphenols, bioflavonoids, antioxidants, amino acids that form complete proteins. So when you think about sprouts, they're not just this little garnish. Like they are a magnificent food with names that we know: broccoli, alfalfa, radish, lentils, green peas, mung beans. Like we know these terms, but sprouts have been relegated to the stepchild of the section of the grocery store, if at all. And major retailers are like so brain dead. Walmart, Kroger's, Whole Food, Walmart, Kroger's, Costco won't even sell sprouts because they think that they're not safe or healthy. But when I did my work with Dr. Jed Fahey from Johns Hopkins, and we studied foodborne illness over a 25-year period, we came to the conclusion, based on the evidence, that sprouts were as safe, if not safer, than any other food, and that that they were twice as safe as lettuce, right? And up to 4 times safer than eggs, and 10 times safer than chicken. And so when I heard that, it was really powerful. So now, what I want to just share with this is that vegetables are good for you, and we want fresh vegetables. And there's nothing fresher than growing your own vegetables and eating them on the day of the harvest or a day later or 2 days later. And even when you put a sprout in the refrigerator, It's still alive. It's still respiring and releasing oxygen and consuming CO2. So this is a very powerful living food source, medicine source, nutritive source that largely gets overlooked because our food system is a profit system. So they are driving the entire food industry is entirely driven by profit. So what do they want to sell in the grocery store? Things that have high margin, things that have long shelf life, things that are in packages that have additives, preservatives, that are cooked and baked and frozen. So even in a Whole Foods where there's 25,000 SKUs, only 2% are produce. And out of the 2%, those 500 items, half of them are not organic. And within the organic section, they still have coatings on them and all this weird stuff. And the average leaf of lettuce has traveled 2,000 miles across the country in a 10-day period till it gets from the farm to the grocery store. So we want things that are fresh. And I know you, Steve, you eat fresh, right? Why do you, Stephen Shore, why do you sprout and eat sprouts?
Want the most nutrition, the most anti-disease, the most benefit to my health that I can get from food.
Right. And what is that?
Sprouts.
And who else do you know that you admire, look up to, respect, that is very high on sprouts?
Brian Clement.
Brian Clement. And what does Brian do with the sprouts?
Eats and juices them.
And he treats people that have serious chronic illnesses with alternatives to radiation and chemotherapy, right? At the Hippocrates Health Center in West Palm Beach.
Right. So I guess the question then for all the people watching this is, are you saying that out of every, no matter what any doctor, nutritionist, dietitian says, that the number one thing you could possibly eat to protect yourself and help yourself, to build your immune system, to fight disease, to prevent disease, is sprouts? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, that's what I'm saying. And what happens is when I interviewed Dr. Joel Furman, Dr. Josh Axe, Dr. Joel Kahn, Dr. Dean Ornish, Dr. Alan Goldhammer, Dr. Mark Hyman, the new head of Medicaid, Dr. Mehmet Oz, and I interviewed all these people. Do you know and some of them are functional medicine, some of them are keto based, some of them are pescatarian, and some are plant based. Do you know what the common thread across these medical professionals was?
They like sprouts.
They loved sprouts. They all loved sprouts. And their knowledge of sprouts educated me 7 years ago when I started to write the Sprout book. And their willingness to be interviewed and to provide content for my book helped me get it over the finish line, right? So now I look at it, and largely sprouts have a non-food category relegated to a garnish, when in fact sprouts should be at the top of the pyramid of the plant-based whole food vegetable diet. So at the top of the pyramid of vegetables should be sprouts, because sprouts contain the stem cells of the plants. Sprouts contain the embryo and endosperm of the plants. And sprouts are one of the only foods that you get to eat that are enzymatically active and electrically alive. This is a living food. This is living and growing. And so it is an incredible food, and it's packed with the nutrients, and it's also packed with a structured water. So the water and the water molecules that you are consuming when you are chewing and crunching the fiber or the cytoplasm of the sprouts is all structured and living. This is beyond. We don't even know the power of that type of water-based molecule, because we're living in a world where most of the people are either drinking toilet water from the tap, that's chlorinated and fluorinated, or they're drinking water from a plastic bottle because they think it's better than drinking tap water. And the reality is, like, you could be getting a significant amount of your hydration from the consumption of the sprouts. So the sprouts can hydrate you, they can fill you up. And what we didn't talk about this morning was that sprouts are very high fiber, low fat, and low calorie. So the consumption of copious amounts of sprouts will actually fill you up, satiate you, and release GLP-1 peptides into your body naturally. So we have a world where they're projecting that 40% of the American population will be on a weight loss drug in the next 24 months, Wegovy, Ozempic, or the like. And then, just like they did with the statins, the Lipitor, they're going to want you to be on that statin for life. And they're going to want you to be on the semaglutide for life. And what happens is, once you go on one of these drugs, then they're going to say, oh, well, you need metformin as a blood thinner, and then you're going to need, this and this and this, and then you're taking a Molotov cocktail every day. And all of these drugs are treating the symptoms of poor health, poor lifestyle, poor nutrition.
Doug, you mentioned broccoli sprouts and their potential to kill cancer cells and detoxify benzene. Could you
Yes,
provide more detail on the research supporting these claims?
absolutely. Just hold on. I knew you were going to do that. So researchers at Johns Hopkins University, including Dr. Jed Fahey, who runs my scientific advisory board and has for the last 4 years, they were the first to identify these compounds inside of cruciferous vegetables that had these chemoprotective properties. So in particular, right, when we look at this, there are cancer cell studies that have shown sulforaphane can trigger apoptosis in cancer cells and inhibit the tumor growth in animal models. And so that's very clear. And there's many research studies on that. On specifically what you're asking about, the detoxification of benzene, there was a study published in Cancer Prevention Research in 2014 that found that broccoli sprout consumption enhanced the secretion of benzene, a carcinogen found in polluted air. So they actually studied it and they tested it. And the mechanism that does that is a phase 2 enzyme activation, which supports like glutathione and S transferase that helps the body remove toxins. So there's a whole body of research, but that's the earmark study that began this was the 2014 study in cancer prevention research.
There's a lot of people, a lot of speakers that are constantly talking about gut health. How does sprouts contribute to building good gut bacteria and improving the microbiome?
I mean, it's another great question. So when you talk about the microbiome, right? The microbiome and the gut is a relatively new science, right? And when you look at what's happening with the microbiome, the sprouts contain soluble and insoluble fiber. And these fibers act as prebiotics that fuel the beneficial gut microbes. So when the gut bacteria ferment these fibers, they produce short chain fatty acids like butyrate, which help maintain a healthy intestinal lining and reduce inflammation. So the diversity of fiber in sprouts from different seed variety and different stages of the sprouts in their consumption further enrich the microbiome, improving digestion and immunity. And so it's a really healthy gut. And probably the greatest testament of sprouts being good for the microbiome is in the book Fiber Fueled by Dr. Will Bolshevitz. So he talks about sprouts in both of his books, Fiber Fueled and the Fiber Fueled cookbook.
Wait, I want to ask you specifically. You described as a seed is something that can germinate even after hundreds of years under the right conditions. What does
Yes.
this tell us about the inherent power of seeds?
Well, it's really interesting. Seeds are complete living organisms and they are in a dormant state. So you can think about them that they are hibernating, right? And they have nature's shelf stable preservatives on them. And you hear about things being frozen in ice, right? And then thawed out hundreds or thousands of years later. Sprouts contain a natural dry preservative that doesn't require refrigeration or freezing. It's using enzyme inhibitors, phytic acid, and lectins to protect the living organism inside the sprout. So it just goes to sleep. Years, decades, centuries later, these seeds in the right environment can be woken up and germinated and can just procreate. So it's really it's beyond human comprehension. I love the word ineffable because that's what sprouts are. And the fact that they are so affordable, like you can buy, the sprouting kit from the sprouting company, right? And it's like $80 and you get the kit and you start to grow your sprouts and you buy seeds and they grow so fast and so much that you end up paying, even if you buy the best seeds in the world, you pay under a serving for a handful of sprouts that are jam-packed with nutrients. So it's so beyond comprehension that this is occurring and that we get to participate in that I implore you to look at everything that you're doing in your life and ask yourself, what do you need to do to start sprouting wherever you are in the world?
Where, in terms of safety to our liver and other organs, is there some amount that is too much and that would be a danger to our body, to our liver? Hello, Dr. Stahl. Nice to see
Hello. Nice to see you too.
you.
Hey, Scott, nice to see you, Doc.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry for being a little late. I was on 7 Central Time and I got a little mixed up, but I'm here.
Okay, well, I'm glad they chased you down.
Yes.
So is there any limit to the sprouts that could be at some level where it's, if I eat too much, it's bad for my liver, it's bad for some organ, I could get too much of something?
I would say that would be the best problem that you could have, that you were such a sprout addict that you were compromising your internal organs. Like that would be the best problem that you'd have. What happens is, Steve, is since sprouts are so raw and so primal, and if you're eating them, you literally become like a non-human animal in nature, and the ability to overeat the sprouts just won't happen. You just won't happen. But sure, you do not want to be eating like food is medicine, like everything else. The poison is in the dose. So I would recommend no more than a few servings of any particular type of sprout, just so you're getting the diversity. But I think the likelihood of, unless you had prior conditions, I don't see a risk.
So you've never heard of someone like getting too much glucosamide or something and hurting their liver?
No, no.
Okay. Okay.
What I hear about, Steve, I hear about people dying of cardiac arrest, right? And I can ask Dr. Stoll, what is the first symptom of heart disease for someone like over 50 years old? First active symptom for someone who has undiagnosed heart disease.
Yeah, I mean, the first undiagnosed symptom can be just simply like shortness of breath with activity, right?
Right.
And you may not even notice.
Right. Or death from heart attack.
Yeah. It
Like,
could
that's
be
what
death,
happened.
yes. At
They
least
call-
40
they-
to 50% of first-time heart attacks can be fatal, correct.
Right. And they're undiagnosed. So all of a sudden, someone is eating this non-plant-based diet, and they're going and they're like shoveling down, the meat and shoveling down. And then all of a sudden, they may get shortness of breath if they're lucky. If they're not lucky, they get a heart attack, fatal heart attack. And so this is the case. So I'm not worried about people ODing on sprouts. I'm worrying about diabetes, heart disease, obesity. And once you go down that path, where you become overweight or obese, it is a very slippery slope to get back.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Stoll, nice to have you with us.
Yes, Steve, thank you.
Is it correct that you have an upcoming book focusing on cancer survival? Do we have that right?
No, it's not yet in progress, but I do have the book, the book on disease reversal hope, which does have some cancer, and it has heart disease, autoimmune. It's a beautiful book where people tell their stories about disease reversal, and we have some science in the back.
Okay.
And that's on Amazon, so Disease Reversal Hope.
And so based on your research, what are some key dietary themes that appear to be consistently beneficial for both disease prevention and slowing down aging overall?
Yeah, that is, like generally when we think about these disease processes, and as we're just hearing, it's a dose-dependent response, and so the greater the dose of plants, and I'll talk specifically about which ones, then the healthier the body. And we have to understand when we're thinking about cancer, especially, it is a total system upheaval. Your immune system has been compromised. Your microbiome has been compromised. You have systemic inflammation. You have tissue and organ damage. And so your body is fighting an all-out war. And so the foods specifically that are most important, we kind of think generally and then work more specifically, the darker the color, fruit and vegetable, the better and the healthier. And then if we work more specifically to foods that are going to be more advantageous, especially for the cancer and heart disease, it's dark leafy greens. And ideally, you're getting 4 to 6 cups per day. And the way to think about this is really what you're doing is hyper-nourishing your body. In essence, when you've developed a disease, heart disease, diabetes, cancer, you have created a health debt. You have overrun your body's normal reserves and depleted reserves, and you've overrun the systems with systemic inflammation, epigenetic disruption. And so you have to pay back this health debt. And in doing so, to get the systems optimized, you really need to flood your body with antioxidants, with fiber, and with plants. So it's dark leafy greens, 4 to 6 cups. It is beans, lentils, and chickpeas. And partially because of what's in them, but also significantly because the fiber is feeding the microbiome. And a healthy microbiome is going to optimize the immune system, which is also going to help the body to heal. In the case of more specific diseases, cancer, the better the nutrition, especially from sprouts, as you've already heard, we're learning tonight, the maximum amount of nutrition that is in sprouts compared to normal fruits and vegetables like broccoli is significant. So sprouts, mushrooms, herbs are very important, and spices. We often forget about spices, but adding turmeric and ginger and cinnamon and cloves, all these beautiful spices into your food, really enhances the auric value, the antioxidant capacity of your food. So your plates look like dark, beautiful, vibrant rainbows of these foods that are going to assist your body in turning back the tide on the injury, reducing systemic inflammation, and optimizing your body's ability to begin repairing those damaged tissues.
So the theory, everything we're hearing at this conference is wonderful. It's based on data. It sounds great. In the real world, Dr. Stoll, when you are dealing with real patients over the last 10 years, people you see, people you know, and Doug, anyone that you see and know, what has been the result? Like, do people get a lot less cancer, a lot less dementia, a lot less diabetes, a lot less heart disease following a whole food, plant-based, high sprout diet? Like, I understand the theory. I love it. It sounds great. But what have you witnessed in your life? Is it really working the way it's supposed to in the people that you actually see? Or is this just somehow a theoretical thing and studies say it's great, but like, what is happening with the last 100 people you saw?
Yeah, that is a fantastic question. And I think that's why we do what we do. The science obviously, validates the benefits of a whole food plant-based diet from, all of the different system levels. But what excites me as a physician is the opportunity to meet somebody and assist them through a healing journey where we can see rapid transformation of a disease process, restoration of their quality of life, and a return to kind of a regenerative lifestyle where their body is recovering. And I'll give you a few examples. Just recently, a friend of mine who has not been plant-based, even though we've known each other a long time, was complaining to me that she was suffering from the shortness of breath. And it's pretty significant. She can't even carry a full sentence without coughing. And she's tried everything, herbal remedies, naturopathic remedies. And she finally gave in. And I said, just do me a favor, hyper-nourish your body with 3 big green smoothies, cut out the dairy, and let's see how you do in a week. She called me in a week and she said, I cannot believe it. I don't have shortness of breath any longer. 1 week. And that validates also what we see at our health immersions. I've been doing 1-week health immersions for Whole Foods immersion, full Whole Foods market. For the last 16 years, we do 2 to 3 per year. And we bring in 100 relatively, unhealthy people that are struggling with the same diseases that you mentioned, Steve. We feed them a whole food plant-based diet. We set up a beautiful buffet, and we encourage them to eat as much as you want. There's no limitation. Load your plate with a beautiful salad, some cooked vegetables, some beans and greens. And in 1 week, we actually have to hire another physician to see them 3 times during the week while I'm lecturing to titrate their medications. Some of the medications are discontinued. Almost everybody leaves on a much lower dose of medication than when they started, including people with type 1 diabetes, where we typically have to reduce their insulin dose by 50 to 75% in 1 week.
Right, because the insulin resistance of the oils and the fat are making it harder for them to process the fruits and the glucose, naturally occurring glucose. So when all of a sudden they stop eating that crap, they no longer have that same level of insulin resistance, and their insulin sensitivity goes up. So I love that, Scott. We should do a separate 100 person immersion into sprout consciousness, because
I love it.
you just joined, but this morning I was on for 2 hours, with them. And I talked about my 30-day journey where I was eating exclusively sprouts. So in 1 cubic foot in 6 jars, I was growing 3,000 calories a day of sprouts. And I'm 58. And so I'm an example of just my own transformation. I lost 36 pounds. My energy is through the roof. I'm sharp as a tack by my own admission. I've got a young wife. I got a 2.5-year-old child. We're just on fire at this family. But I'm staying with a guy that was just in the news that he was a singer-songwriter named Stephen Gordy, AKA Red Foo. And he had the #1 song, party rock anthem that went global. And when his music career took off, he basically stopped his tennis, and never played. And then we started to hang out about 8 months ago, and he went raw vegan sprout-avore. So he's a sprout-avore, a sproutarian, eating sprouts and fruit. And if you Google Red Foo and tennis, all of a sudden he decided at 49 years old to get his first ATP point. So he played his first professional tournament in his life at 49 years old. Now he's training 5 hours a day, and he's going to become a professional tennis player.
Wow.
His recovery, his energy.
Yeah.
And you got to understand, he's not playing in an old man's league. Stephen, he's playing with 20-year-olds, 20-year-olds, and he's 49. So the ability to transform your diet and recreate your cells. And Scott, I can't wait to introduce you to Red Foo, because you probably have some tips for him. But right now, he's out there on the court. Right now, I'm at his house, and he's playing in the courts. He's a beast. And for me, last year, I did the 100,000 push-up challenge. I did 300 push-ups a day, every day for a year, well over 100,000 push-ups. I did 5 sets of 60 push-ups, and I don't even lose my breath. I don't even get winded. I just drop them, bang them out before 8 o'clock in the morning.
That's great, Doug.
So I can tell you, we can go through other examples, but from a level, Steve, sprouts are vegetables. We all, if you haven't watched Forks Over Knives, it's a free somewhere that you can watch it, right? So this is not a fact. The biggest challenge that we have is we talk to people that are brainwashed by the traditional world. So friends and family and habits and food and restaurants. So the most dangerous thing to do if you're doing this diet and if you want to do this is to tell anybody. You tell someone, hey, where'd you go for lunch? I went to McDonald's. They go, what'd you get? Oh, I got a 9-piece chicken McNugget and a large fries and blah, blah. And oh, great. You tell them, oh, I ate some sprouts and a salad, or sprouts and a banana. And they're ready to have you arrested or put into a straitjacket, because it's so insane to think that you can actually live on sprouts or live on vegetables.
In terms of nutritional supplements, assuming one is eating healthy, they're eating lots and lots of sprouts and lots of vegetables and a whole food plant-based diet. Now, you can go get a lot of tests these days. You could get a blood, stool, urine, hair, breath, saliva test, and they all give you a list of deficiencies, and it's pretty likely you're going to have some. So assuming you already are eating sprouts, you're already eating a whole food plant-based diet, you take some of these tests, you have too much or too little of something, what are your recommendations for those of us, which is all of us, that want to prevent disease, in terms of what nutritional supplements you think we should or shouldn't be taking?
Yeah, that's a great
Doctor.
question and an important one. Yeah, Doug, do you want to go first? You want
No,
me to go
no, no.
first?
By all means,
All right.
doctor.
So, I think what's interesting when we look at deficiencies, and we look at the lab work that we might receive, there are deficiencies that are important to pay attention to. Vitamin B12, is irreplaceable. You cannot live without vitamin B12 as a source from somewhere. Now, throughout most of human history, people got it from the soil because they were in the soil. They were growing soil-based sprouts. You get vitamin B12 on the vegetables. They were getting it from spring water. But today, our food is largely deficient in vitamin B12 because we're not engaged with the soil. So you do need to take a supplement with vitamin B12. So there are deficiencies that are essential, and then there are some in the plant-based world that we might see, like zinc, boron, manganese, some of these others that might come up. So we just want to look at those carefully. What we don't want to fall into is the trap of over purchasing supplements. Food really is the primary tool for getting nutrition into our bodies. When the food is grown in the right way in regenerative organic soil, where the soil is alive and being replenished, you're going to get almost everything you need from your soil. There's a research project going on at Rodale Institute right now. I'm on the board of directors there, and they are growing food 3 feet apart that's conventional and organic, and then doing nutrient testing on both of those food items. And in most cases, the organic obviously is going to be higher, but in some cases, it's between 100 and 700 times higher in antioxidants, nutrients than you would get in conventional. And so it's just one more reason for us to either grow our own food, like Doug's doing, growing it, and when you can, grow it in soil. When you can purchase food organically, to do so because of the soil is going to make a difference. And when we're not, to make sure that we are sufficient in those nutrients. So when you find deficiencies, oftentimes it's not going to be that many if you're eating a well-balanced, well-rounded, whole food plant-based diet with a variety of foods. But you may have some deficiencies in a few minerals, as I mentioned, vitamin B12. If you're not outside, you may encounter a low vitamin D, and you can just replace that during the winter with 2,000 to 3,000 international units of vitamin D. I like to keep supplementation simple, and for a number of reasons. One, for cost for all of us, that have families, but two, it just makes it something that will actually be sustainable. So I love the supplement complement. I have no relationship with complement, but I love the concept with which it was developed, that it is complementing a healthy whole food plant-based diet, not supplementing where we're eating unhealthy foods and trying to supplement our diet with nutrients on the other side. And it has just a basic level of nutrients that could be deficient, and have been shown to be somewhat deficient in a variety of whole food plant-based diets. Other than that, I really love just using food as my primary source, adding mushrooms, adding more sprouts, adding more greens to buff up the nutrient density of my diet.
Wow. Dr. Stoll, thank you for sharing that. What I would add to that is probably omega-3 fatty acids. A lot of people are under the belief that they need to have krill or fish oil or someplace to get it. And what I realized is that you can get it from algae. So I like to have seaweed. I like wakame and nori as a source of my EPA and DHA. And then also, because I'm clean and raw and living, my body's ability to convert ALA into EPA and DHA is very, very fine-tuned. So I don't have any data from other people to doing that, but I think the source of getting omega-3 medium chain fatty acids is very important, and you can get that from seaweed and from chia and flax sprouts. So the other thing, and I agree on the B12, whether it's fortified and the like, and I also want to dispel the myth that people are getting vitamin B12 from eating meat, because the meat that they're getting, by and large, 98% of meat is from factory farming in capos, And there, the grain is fortified with a B12 supplementation. So you're actually getting a secondary level of unregulated amounts, of these drugs and steroids and hormones and antibiotics. So, the simplest thing to do is to, get the supplement. And I love Complement. I think they're a great company, and they actually have a formula that has B12 in it and omega-3s.
And omegas, yes.
So they have the omega formula. I think they're terrific. But if you were to ask me, the only supplement that I do is vitamin B12, and I do it on a periodic basis. Randomly we'll take a sublingual B12, or a shot in the glutes, just for, if I'm around someone who's got the shot around, I'll take it. But everything else, like, I know, right? Because how you feel. Like, to me, when I see people that are lethargic, that are lying around, that they don't have the energy, I want to cry. Like, I really want to, like, shake them alive. I'm going to do a project, by the way, and Scott, we should do this together. I don't know where you are in the world, but I'm going to go and get online at Whole Food, at Burger King, Wendy's, and McDonald's. And I have a similar skill that I think both of you have, which is the ability to talk to strangers. So I'm just going to get on the line and say, hey, what are you guys getting for lunch? What do you recommend? And then offering to buy their lunch if they will let me talk to them about nutrition. So literally, like, I feel like I'm a missionary. And then I'll buy their lunch. And I've done this before. And all of a sudden, I'm putting broccoli sprouts on their pizza, on their tamale, in their burrito, etc. And they can't even taste it, and they eat it. And then I reveal to them that I've now increased the nutritional levels of that meal by 1,000-fold, like 1,000-fold. So it's really about being, this missionary work. And what I believe, and Scott, you missed, I talked for 2 hours this morning, but sprouts have been demonized and relegated with irrational myths around food security and food safety, because there was no money behind it, right? So all of a sudden, when there's an outbreak of lettuce, you hear about it and goes away the next day. When there's an outbreak of chicken from salmonella poisoning, you don't even hear about it. They're now legally allowed to ship chicken from the farm with salmonella on it. The standard used to be 0, and now they're saying, we just can't control it. Just don't wash it. Because if you wash it, you're going to be spreading that all around your kitchen. Just find some way to get it into the broiler and cook it, till it's just, all brown. Like, it's a crazy level, but it's all about the money. And what we have to understand is that everything we put in our mouth is a life or death decision. And we get to choose. And it's hard to choose, because all of the advertisements, all of the celebrities, all of the sponsorship, all the lobbying, like, is getting you to think that you need to eat these other things. So people that are tuned into here, they need to know that, wait, just take a pause, that whole food, plant-based does work, and you really can transform it. And simpler. And sprouts only came into my life, and this was this weird thing. Like, I knew about sprouts, I ate sprouts, but I always thought of them as a side dish. Then I ended up at Wonder Valley Hot Springs in the Mojave Desert, and no health food stores, no supermarkets, no farmers markets, and I still want to be healthy. And that's when I got this download from the universe that, Doug, you can sprout. You can sprout. And so I just started to sprout, and in this 1 cubic foot, I was growing these things. And then literally my entire life became dedicated to sharing this message, because I really looked around, and Ann Wigmore tremendous inspiration for me. I loved Ann Wigmore. I've been to the Ann Wigmore Institute, Victoria Skovinskas, Brian Clement, David Avocado Wolf, Gabriel Cousins. Like, these are the giants ahead of me, Steve Meyerowitz, the Sprout Man, but they never like decided to play, in the big screen. Like, they didn't want to cross over to mainstream and put themselves in a vulnerable place to fight the battle. And I just gave a keynote 3 weeks ago at the International Sprout Growers Association meeting. And all the sprout growers are like walking on eggshells, scared of the FDA and the USDA, and they're scared of getting like a spot inspection, or something will happen because their businesses could go out of business. And I just said, no, we have the science and the data behind us, and we need to just go forth and literally scream from the rooftops. And I'm not screaming like a madman. I'm screaming, as someone who wants to help people. So
I love it, Doug. I
Thank
love
you.
your enthusiasm.
Let me ask you another question. Advanced glycation end products, AGEs, can contribute to aging. What are some cooking methods and dietary choices that can help minimize the AGAs, advanced glycation end products?
Right, so that's a great question. So advanced glycation end products, for everyone that are watching, the way to think about them is that it our tissues, whether it's our skin, our arteries, are elastic and vibrant. AGEs take away that elasticity and create tissue level damage that can lead to a host of other problems. And one way to think about it, the advanced glycation end products, AGEs, they age your body when you're exposed to them. And they largely come from kind of two things. One is the high heat cooking of meat, or those proteins, and a lot of the blackening that you might see, heterocyclic amines on the meat, contributes to AGEs. Also cooking carbohydrates, the high heat cooking of carbohydrates, where you get the sugars that get the glycation that create these cross linkings that actually end up damaging the tissue. So whenever we're cooking processed carbohydrates or meat at high temperatures, we're creating AGEs, which is largely the American diet: processed food, baked goods, and meat products. So when we're cooking in a plant-based diet, we're just treating our vegetables gently, trying to get more of our food from raw sources as possible. And then when you do cook food, you're cooking it gently, being kind to it, and you'll avoid the formation of these AGEs. And, not all cooking is disadvantageous. Sometimes when we cook food, it releases or activates some of the antioxidants that may not be available in raw food. And for a lot of people, a raw diet can be challenging. And so adding some cooked food to your plate can be a way to maintain a healthy diet. But if you cook the food gently, light steaming, light heat, you're not going to form those AGEs, and you'll have food that works with you. But again, it's like Doug is mentioning, the more that we can eat raw, and I always advocate for if you were thinking about your plate, at least half of your plate is a big salad, raw vegetables. If you're going to do 25%, you could have something else raw there, or a lightly cooked vegetable, and then your cooked dish, whatever you're cooking. And in that way, it becomes a very easy, sustainable diet with very low advanced glycation end products and nutrients that are going to work with your body to begin regenerating those systems that are going to heal.
Thank you. I'm not sure if this has to do with your expertise, but please comment. We've spoken about a bunch of regular diseases and health challenges. There's also a lot of people that are concerned about osteoporosis, arthritis, hip replacements, knee replacements. Does anything in your diet and lifestyle impact these things?
Oh, yes. Just as a 1 minute background, my original coming out of residency was physical medicine rehabilitation. I was a sports and spine physician. So I was a team doctor at Lehigh University, team doctor with the United States bobsled team. And so I have operated largely in that musculoskeletal world and kind of fused lifestyle medicine and musculoskeletal medicine. So I'll just really go through a quick overview of this, but yes, your lifestyle has a dramatic impact on bone density and arthritis. First, before we get into the food, we have to just think about our bodies and our muscular system as, with the view that the body is in alignment. So when we have a car and our tires are not in alignment, you don't notice it until one edge of the tire becomes worn down, and then you have abnormal wear pattern on the tire. And the same thing happens with the body. We have a misalignment that occurs in our body from an injury, from repetitive motion. You can get weak muscles. From not stretching or working out, we get abnormal rotation in one of our parts of our body. Then as we walk 3 to 5, 7,000 steps a day, we get abnormal wear patterns that can occur up through ankle, knee, hip, all the way to the base of the skull. And you can develop arthritis over time from misalignment of the body. And I just want to point that out because it's really important as we age to understand that we need to take time to work on mobility, flexibility, and body alignment through exercise patterns like Pilates and yoga and specific mobility exercising, because that really will make a difference to your quality of life. When we think about osteoporosis, it's important for us to realize that we've been told that osteoporosis is aging of the bone and that it's this weak bone. It comes down to it's atrophy of the bone. Your bone is alive, and when you are exercising, just like if you're exercising a muscle, the muscle responds with hypertrophy and gets stronger and bigger. And the same thing with our bones. When we're exercising our bones with weight-bearing exercises, the skeletal system responds and it builds bone density in response to that stress. So a part of your management of osteoporosis is weight-bearing exercises. That can be, push-ups, weight-bearing through the arms. It can be wearing a light-weighted vest to walk along and create extra weight on your axial body, your skeleton, to push down on your legs. It can be, hopping, jump roping. There are plates called power plates, vibrational plates, which vibrate at a high frequency that can also improve that bone density through kind of stressing the skeletal system. And then we get to the food piece, which is really important. We have to understand that the solution that has been told to us oftentimes is take more calcium, assuming that if we just take enough calcium, we're going to build healthy bones. But we forget that it's a calcium metabolism. It's the amount of calcium that goes in, it's the amount of calcium that's absorbed, and some vitamins make a difference, and some medications can hinder that absorption, like acid blocking medications for reflux disease. Then that has to get assimilated into the bone, and then there are losses of calcium. So the good news is, I'll just quickly go through this, Steve, so we know that the good news on the front end with calcium intake, we know that there's more bioavailable calcium in greens, in a cup of greens, than there's a cup of milk. And we know that if people are eating 500 calories of plant-based foods versus 500 calories of animal-based foods, that includes milk. In one study, they showed that the animal-based diet with milk would contribute about 252 milligrams of calcium. A plant-based diet, which is largely it's greens and tomatoes and cucumbers, would contribute 500 milligrams of calcium. So I just want to reassure everybody, you're getting more than enough good calcium from your plants. The absorption is easier because it's coming from a more natural source. The assimilation into your bones is more efficient because the calcium comes with phytochemicals, and it also comes with minerals like manganese that help that calcium to be packed into those bones. And on the far end, when we're eating a plant-based diet, it is very low in dietary acids. When you eat an animal-based diet, is high in dietary acids. And one of the ways that our body works to kind of balance that acid base level is to pull calcium out of our bones as a buffer. And so people that are eating a lot of meat end up urinating calcium out on a regular basis. And they've done studies where they can measure the amount of calcium that is being urinated out from a high acid, low diet. So at every one of those levels, we see that plants are superior. We add in weight-bearing exercise, and we subtract those things like excessive caffeine, phosphoric acid, stress will also strip away calcium out of your bones, and alcohol, and we remove those things, and we see that that's the most efficient way to maintain a healthy skeletal system.
Wow, that's so powerful, Scott. I could listen to you all day. I want to just throw in, one thing about this is that sprouts are also a great source of calcium, right? So I just opened up a little table here. Lentil sprouts, per 100 grams of lentil sprouts, 25 milligrams of calcium. Alfalfa sprouts, 32 milligrams. Clover sprouts, 30 milligrams. Radish sprouts, 38 milligrams. Chickpeas, 60 milligrams, right? Broccoli sprouts per 100 grams, right, is 60 milligrams of calcium. So the idea that you literally could become a sproutivore and have low cost, super poops, there's trace amounts of AGEs, in sprouts, but there's no glycation end products in sprouts. And the other thing, when you talk about AGEs, the other thing to worry about is acrylamide, which is a carcinogen that's formed, when you cook high heat, 140 degrees Celsius or higher, which is cooking in oil and the like. Any of the bread, pizza, pasta, these cooked carbohydrates form a carcinogen. So, when I look at like being raw, the only difficult thing about being raw is like your friends and the neighbors that are all cooked, right? And so since that's a hard thing to do, my latest part is just like add sprouts to your diet. And the more that no pun intended, the more you plant these sprout seeds into your diet and you start to feel better, the more that you will want. So it is really it is a very addictive, Steve. And look, Steve, when you started sprouting, you had 1 jar. Now you've got 6, right? And you want to get even more. Like literally, Steve is like the best customer at the sprouting company with 6 jars. So
and I use them every day.
Sprout farm.
And I use them all the time, nonstop. They're always in use.
Yeah. So when I look at this, like the biggest impediment, and Scott, in New York, when I knew Steve, I was running Organic Avenue, and you couldn't get out of Organic Avenue without spending $30 or $40, because everything we were doing was raw, everything was plant-based. The juices and the smoothies were in glass bottles at $10 each. Like we wouldn't even use sweeteners. Like we would make our own date paste, like super premium. You couldn't get out of there for $30 or $40, right? With sprouts, like you literally could live on a few dollars a day and feed your family. You just have to have the desire and the consciousness to shift from that, and just upgrading from lettuce, right? The average leaf of lettuce has traveled 2,000 miles across the country, for a 10-day period. So the time it gets to the grocery store, it is dying. And what people don't know, and this is, I'll just share this other part, is minerals are really important. And sprouting is not hydroponic. Hydroponic growing is using pumps and plastic tubes and minerals as fertilizer. The sprouts contain the minerals from the soil, right? So from the soil that they were planted in, the minerals go through the roots, through the stems, through the leaves, into the flowers, into the fruit of the plants, and into the seed. And if you think about how small a seed is, it has just the accurate, perfect amount of fertilizer in it, or it would not have fruited and flowered to the point. So you're actually, when you're eating sprouts, you're getting the minerals, the phytonutrients, the micronutrients, the soluble, the insoluble fiber, and then all of these concentrated phytonutrients that by the time you get to a mature vegetable are diluted to the point that they are de minimis, like literally the concentration in the sprouts. And this information just has never like crossed over. And I didn't discover anything. I just did the work and research it. And my job is to reveal it, as an evangelist and as an advocate.
Okay. So let's assume that, thank you. So let's assume someone says 17 days is too long of a conference. An hour and 15 minutes is too long for a panel. I'm only interested in 2 minutes total is all I'm willing to listen to out of the whole 17 days. I'll listen to one question, and it's to you guys. And the simple question is, what are the most effective evidence-based dietary and lifestyle strategies for lowering my risk of cancer, dementia, heart disease, kidney disease? That's the question. They don't want a motivational speech. They don't want a theory. They want to know exactly what are the most powerful things number one, number two, number three, as best as possible, to guide them for their life. What are the principles that, with diet or lifestyle, that you consider the core things that everyone who wants to stay healthy and prevent disease should be doing?
Sounds good. You want me to go first?
Oh, please, Dr. Stoll.
All right. So I've been doing this more than 20, almost 25 years now. And, if I had to just simplify this down, and I might slip in a fourth one, but
take as many as you want, as many steps as you want.
The most, I'm going to start in a little different place, and I'm going to end where I think we all would begin, which is the plant-based diet. I really want to begin with one of the most important things for transforming your life is to begin thinking differently about yourself and about the world. It's changing our mindsets and our beliefs, one, into what is possible, and opening up with awareness and consciousness that food is more powerful and our lifestyle is far more powerful than we have ever imagined. And just to allow yourself the opportunity to begin receiving that information and allowing yourself the opportunity to begin changing your lifestyle. I've seen through the years that once we begin to think differently about ourselves, we start changing our identity a little bit and begin appreciating ourselves and looking into the future and envisioning a future healthy self, we get drawn through the process of transforming our lifestyle. If we're simply trying to approach our lifestyle like the diet industry does today, which is reductionistic, eat this, don't eat that, and it becomes this rule-based life that's not sustainable. We want to have the same level of enthusiasm that Doug has, that Dr. Furman, that T. Colin Campbell. It's the enthusiasm that comes out because they see life through a different lens. And I just want to encourage everyone to start there, because that's what makes this journey fun and exciting. And it helps to actually create hope. When we turn on hope in our brains, it actually turns on the frontal part of our brain that begins seeing a strategy, tactics, and overcoming challenges. So that's the first part. The second, number two, the foundation is food. I love, and I'm going to talk about them now in just a minute, nutrition, fitness, stress, and sleep. But truly, the way to prevent and suspend reverse disease is with a vibrant, whole food, plant-based diet, abundant in those darker colored fruits, vegetables, beans, lentils, abundant sprouts, mushrooms. That is the core. I've worked with so many people, thousands and thousands of people through the years, and the diet, even in the absence of some of these other lifestyle factors, consistently optimizes the body systems that are necessary to prevent, suspend, and reverse disease. And we see it in our immersions every single year that in 1 week's time, so many things get better when we give the body the right food and the right opportunity to begin regenerating itself. Number 3 is stress. That is the one that can undermine so many aspects of our life because we've all been there. And I've been in stressful situations and gone through some really hard times. And it becomes difficult to even shop, cook, know what to manage. But if you just begin understanding some basic management of stress, have a core community of people that will support and encourage you, practice some deep breathing every day, find purpose and meaning in your life. Those will help you get through the stressful times, will help to mitigate the effects of stress and the cortisol. And if you're in chronic stress, cortisol will drive up the cravings for carbohydrates. So learning some stress management is really essential. Next is finding ways to move in life more. And I also want to kind of dispel the ideas around exercise and movement. Find something you love to do and do it as often as possible. I also love to teach people how to redeem the time. Sometimes we say, I don't have enough time for exercise. There's always time to squeeze in something. I teach people to do isometric exercises. I call them redeem the time, where you're just using your body as a gym. You can talk on the phone and do a wall sit. You can do a lunge while you're talking on the phone. You can walk over lunch. There's lots of ways to redeem the time to just movement into your life. And the simplest way, if you're not moving, to start is just add in 2 minutes a day of doing something. And that little bit of success over time will help you to build a consistent movement lifestyle over time. And then finally, the other one that is really important is sleep. We often forget about sleep, but sleep is an important regenerative component of our lifestyle. Between the hours of about 12 and 3 a.m., our body goes through a regenerative cycle. And if we miss that window, we miss the body's opportunity to begin regenerating and healing itself. Also, when we don't sleep, our hormones get out of whack, things like prolactin that drive up carbohydrate cravings and will cause us to make different decisions than we would have made had we been rested. So work on your sleep hygiene, because that's more important than we might realize. Turn off these phones, turn off the television, no televisions in the room, do something quiet and get a good night's sleep. And that little section that I just have run through with lifestyle, if you practice that on a consistent basis, I promise you, you will be healthier, more vibrant, stronger than you ever imagined, and your body will be optimally disease resistant, and you will experience a more wonderful life.
Thank you very much.
I'm in.
Go ahead, Doug.
Okay, no, I just want to just bow to Dr. Stoll for that. That was very, very powerful. So, in my world, it's almost similar, is that I believe we are in an abundant environment, and that the nature will provide for us. And what we need to do is stop sabotaging and leaning in. So I'm a huge proponent of being in nature and being out, and just being out away from cities, away from noise, away from Wi-Fi and technologies, and being with nature, because nature whispers, right? And intuition whispers. And if you're in the rat race, which I was in for many, many years, and workaholism, I never heard my own thoughts. I was just on this someone else's agenda. I was someone else's, cog in someone else's wheel. And I was just doing my best to kind of keep up. And when I got to nature and I saw the abundance of nature, it was liberating, and I felt free. And the intuition, whether you believe in it or not, it's very real. Like, anyone can walk into a room and feel the energy of tense hostility, or if people were fighting. Even if they're not fighting now, you can feel the hostility. So there's subtle energies. And if you are in nature, you will just feel better breathing in the fresh air. You'll be inspired to walk more and to do things. So I'd say get into nature. The second thing is, I think it's a no-brainer to go plant-based or start stacking as many plants as you can into your diet as you can afford. And sprouts are very easy to stack them in. But I think and I don't know if we'll have time, but I'd love to ask Dr. Stoll what he thinks going on with this propaganda of carnivore diet and keto, and how many years it's going to take for the fallout, of this and the boomerang effect. But I really believe wholeheartedly that the source of all nutrition is plants, and it's the most direct source. So getting through, animals or through dairy or through fish, it's just very, very inefficient. And the overhead that the body has to take to process that, to extract that nutrition, is not worth it. Environmentally, it's a catastrophe. Somehow there's enough food to feed 80 billion farm animals, plants, but there's not enough to feed 8 billion humans, plants, where we're still, people are living in food insecure environments. So it's just so backwards and really cruel to the environment, to the world, and to the animals. So I think just going plant-based, and if you don't know how to do it, there's so many resources and so many people would love to help and support you with that. And then, as Dr. Stoll was talking about, the obvious and intuitive part of having organic versus sprayed, right, chemicals, like we don't have a shortage of deficiency. You may have a deficiency of vitamin B12. You don't have a deficiency of glyphosate, or any of the other pesticides, herbicides, fungicides that are designed to kill, that even the trace amounts of those going into our body are harsh. And it's expensive to go buy organic vegetables in the supermarket, but if you can grow them on your own for pennies a serving, that removes that barrier. But I'm really pro plants, I'm pro living. And then probably the most important thing, and it's not in any order, is really about having love in your heart. Like just, love yourself, love your friends, love your family, love everyone. Like I want to avoid conflict and just start loving. And, an exercise that I do and that everyone here can do it, it's free, is walk down the street and to yourself, smile and say, I love you. So you don't want to be a creeper going down saying, I love you to strangers, but in your own mind, just the practice of saying, I love you to people, whether they're homeless, whether they're in a suit, whether in a Tesla or a Prius, it doesn't matter, the bus driver, just start to share your love and share the gratitude. And then you will be lifting yourself into this abundant universe consciousness of gratitude, because that love will flow.
Thank you, Doug. Okay. Well, I want to thank both of you for sharing your wisdom of all these years and your passion and your intelligence and your experience. It's really, I consider it an unbelievable shortcut. I mean, I can't speak for other people, but I don't want to spend the next 20 years trying to figure things out when there are people like you both who've already done the research and spent the years and are volunteering to pass it on to us for free. Very grateful to both of you for that. If we could unmute everyone so everyone else can acknowledge and thank you as well.
Amen.
In the
Thank you so much. This was so interesting.
Enthusiasm.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Remediation